It's April 12th, and the strange side of history awaits. Today, we have a crew lost in a desert with no way home, a family whose disappearance ended in tragedy, and a leader whose life ended in a single quiet moment. Let's begin. On April 12, 1943, somewhere in the endless silence of the Libyan desert, a man wrote his final words, "No help yet, very cold night." He was Lieutenant Robert Toner, one of 9 crewmen aboard the American bomber Lady Be Good, a plane that had vanished without a trace. They had bailed out days earlier in the darkness of 2 a.m., believing they were drifting over the Mediterranean Sea, but when their parachutes opened, there was no water beneath them, only sand stretching in every direction. 8 out of the 9 of them survived the jump. Somehow, they each found each other in the dark and began walking north, convinced the coast was ahead. For 8 days, they crossed the desert, 85 miles under the burning sun, with almost no water. Tone's diary described it simply: "Spent the PM in hell." As their strength faded, 3 men pushed ahead to find help. Others stayed behind, too weak to move, waiting in silence, and no one ever came. 16 years later, in 1958, British explorers found the aircraft almost perfectly preserved, as if it had just landed. And then came the bodies and the diary. The cruelest detail? The men had passed just 16 miles of their own plane, stocked with food, water, and working radios, before they turned away, deeper into the desert. They were so close to survival and had no idea. Sometimes the difference between life and death is just one wrong direction. On April 12, 1975, high in the remote wilderness of Oregon's Siskiyou Mountains, a discovery was made that would turn a quiet family's disappearance into one of the state's most haunting mysteries. 7 months earlier, the Cowden family had vanished without a trace. Richard and Belinda Cowden, their young son David, and their infant daughter Melissa, gone from a campsite as if they had simply stepped into the forest and never returned. When the investigation first reached the abandoned site, something felt wrong. A full quart of milk sat untouched. Purses and valuables were still nearby, placed on the table. No sign of a struggle, no sign of urgency, just silence. Then on April 12th, gold prospectors searching deep in the mountains made a grim discovery, 7 miles from the campsite. They found Richard first, tied to a tree. Not far away, hidden in a shallow cave, was the rest of the family, concealed beneath rock. Belinda and young David had been shot. No one knew exactly what happened in those woods, and no one knows why they were taken, or how they made it so far without a trace. A suspect was named, Dwayne Lee Little, a convicted killer who lived nearby, but he was never charged. What do you think really happened out there? A random attack, or something more planned? On April 12, 1945, inside a quiet room in Warm Springs, Georgia, one of the most powerful men in the world sat calmly for a portrait, unaware that history was about to stop mid-brushstroke. Franklin D. Roosevelt had retreated to his little White House, seeking rest as World War II neared its end. That afternoon, artist Elizabeth Shomentoff studied him carefully, capturing his likeness in watercolor, his posture, his expression, and the weight of a nation sitting on his shoulders. The room was quiet, and at around 1 p.m., Roosevelt spoke softly. "We have 15 minutes more." And then, without warning, everything changed. He raised his hand to his head and said, "I have a terrific headache." Moments later, he slumped forward in his chair. The president had suffered a massive cerebral hemorrhage. Within minutes, he was unconscious, and he would never wake again. The painting was never finished. The portrait captured Roosevelt exactly as he was in his final moments, frozen in time, mid-session, mid-life. An image interrupted by death itself. She would later go to complete a second version from memory, but the original remains untouched. Today, both portraits are on display at the Little White House in Warm Springs, Georgia, the one from memory with a blue tie instead of a red. Another day, another strange bite from history. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your next eerie dose is just a day away.